G'day, it's Oscar, and this is subscriber-only content. Thank you for subscribing. As a thank you for your commitment and taking that extra step and selecting subscribe, as well as based on our audience survey and research, I'm listening to you. This is called Answer My Questions. If you have a question on listening in the workplace that you would love to have answered, email podcast@oscartrimboli.com. That's podcast@oscartrimboli.com. Lynn says, thank you, Oscar. Adding the Answer My Question segment has been a great addition to my listening. Very practical. Thanks, Lynn. Her question is, I would love some phrases to help somebody who has strong views to focus their thinking. If you've been to a Thanksgiving dinner, if you've been to a Christmas dinner, and you know that there's the grumpy uncle who's always got a perspective that they're going to share. And we need to be careful because I might be that grumpy uncle. Rather than letting them get in their pattern, this is the phrase I've found really both short circuits the situation and helps the rest of the room listen to this. And this is the most crucial part of this conversation. The reason these people in social situations are really passionate about describing the idea over and over and over again in a really vigorous way is because they don't feel like they've been heard any time in the past. That's the only reason. So practice this phrase. Could you take me back to when you first formed this perspective? Could you take me back to when you first formed this perspective? Now, I was interviewed 2 years ago in September on a podcast where this question was asked, and they described this person as the grumpy uncle, and off they went. So they asked them the question at Thanksgiving dinner, and they sent me a note that quite shocked me and surprised me, and it shocked them and surprised them. So the grumpy uncle had very definite political views, and those political views were very repetitive, and they were inserted into every single conversation. And Ian, the person who interviewed me, used this phrase, and the grumpy uncle went and stopped. He literally stopped mid-conversation. He turned to Ian and he said, when I came back from Vietnam, everybody ignored me. That's when I formed this perspective. And then he went on to explain the stepping stones that got him there. Now, from that point on, the rest of the Thanksgiving dinner engaged in that conversation very differently with the grumpy uncle. And since then, that everybody's engaging and talking and interacting with the grumpy uncle in a really different way. And the grumpy uncle is also interacting with everybody else in a really different way because he had the chance to tell the story. I was working with a family office. So these are people who run big private companies on behalf of either the founder or the family. And they were really frustrated with the founder's obsession about cost. And they used the same question then as well. You know, when was it that you first formed this opinion about counting the pennies? Now, what they discovered, this person grew up in the middle of the Great Depression. And once they told that story, they had a context for everybody else. So whether it's a social situation or a workplace situation, people share vigorous views consistently. Usually they don't feel like they've been heard. What's your question? I'd love to know. Let me know. Send me an email, podcast@oscartrimboli.com. That's podcast@oscartrimboli.com for any questions you have on listening in the workplace. Thanks for listening.